Welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Leadership Podcast. I have a dear friend who has been in my life for a minute. We actually crossed paths back in 2020 when we were in a group coaching program together. We were both, straddling that, coaching, therapy situation, trying to figure out where we were going to go next. Elliott Lea is a holistic transformational mentor with a kink for astrology. Her background as a licensed clinical social worker for 10 years, combined with her passion and intuition for astrology, creates a roadmap for seeing clients deeply. Elliott is the creator of Astrology for Relationships, Mercury is Key, the first in a series of podcast courses to help you and your partner understand each other with more grace and compassion, bridging the gap in communication and awareness. Her mission is to make transformation simple and astrology relatable for you, with a focus on entrepreneurs, CEOs, and high performers. Yes. And this was
Woo!
where I reached out to Elliott. I think it was an Instagram story where you were like, yeah, I just kind of like did an astrology reading for somebody in leadership and all of the members of their team so that everybody could understand each other a lot better. And I was like, oh, okay, we must have you on the podcast. We must talk about this. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, I know it's been a minute, but like, love what you're doing. Congratulations on getting married. Do you want to come on my podcast? And you were like, absolutely.
Yes.
So I'm so excited to have you on the chat today. And for the people who don't know you as well as I do, you could just give a little bit of background. I would love for people to feel a little more connected to you and your journey.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, thank you for that intro. I love this. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Amber. So give a Leo a microphone and she'll talk. So, so let me share about where I've been that's gotten me here today. So as you mentioned, I am a licensed social worker. That's my entire career was my entire career. We go to grad school, we go to school for many years, with a certain outcome. And I love the perspective of this got me to, and that will get me to the next thing. And nothing is ever without substance for us. And so when I spent so many years, in the mental health field, I did substance abuse. I worked with the homeless. We were chatting off recording how I really did have this kind of perfect position when it comes to the career that, is so sought after. I had like the position
Yeah.
of the most security, the most safety, the most, pension at the end of it. Like I could have rode that out for 30 years. And it's so fascinating because you cannot deny a soul calling. And I knew that I knew that I will always be in the field of helping other people. I will always deeply care about others and supporting their growth, but I had deeply outgrown the way in which I was doing it. And so from a series of events that, honestly started with a nice little breakup, as a lot do.
Yep.
Like 5+ years ago, I had a whole dark night of the soul moment and I questioned everything in my life of, all the way to, am I even a social worker anymore? Is this even who I am and what I want to do? And I, stayed with that. I stayed with that, question and that questioning of everything in my life, all of my thoughts, all of my beliefs, everything I began to question. And quickly within months and months, a whole new life started to unfold for me and that's been 5+ years and have continued to unfold. So short story, I left that. And when I met you, when I made the leap into full-time coaching and I left my most stable, secure position I could be in and went and to serve people in a way that really made sense for me because the position I was in couldn't allow that, wouldn't allow that. And so I did something that was for me. And we were talking off screen and it's just so interesting to reflect back because it's just now a part of who I am. And I forget that not everyone takes these kinds of leaps. Not everyone in my world, I'm like, this is just who I am now. It's been a few years. So this is just who I am. And it's been so fun to watch the evolution of that. So I then began my journey as a as a transformational mentor and coach, working with clients. And then even from that, that is evolving. And the last 6 months has really been an initiation, which is why you reached out. I've really been initiated into astrology. And this is
Mm,
something that I have always used with clients. I mean, I dove right in when I learned, like we all did, when we learn astrology and human design, we like want to know all the things about us. And
yep,
again,
yeah.
as a Leo, I was like, tell me all the things. But what it did for me, and I'm going to say this because this was so powerful for me. When somebody sent, it was a colleague who sent me, she's like, did you know you can like type in your birth information and somebody on a computer screen will tell you everything you need to know about you? And I was like, what? I was like, let me see this. And I pulled it up and I was like, I have never felt so fucking seen or so fucking validated from something that doesn't even know me. Like that's what my birth chart did to me. And it was this
Wow.
like reverberation of like emotion of like, oh my God, there's something that like I can't tell you, I don't have a lot of words for the validation because it was just such an experience to be so seen and heard and understood.
Mm,
And
mhm.
I've been hooked since. And so from there, I was like, well, if I felt this way, like I want other people to feel this way. Like that's the Leo in me. I was like, well, I want this for everyone. And
Mm.
so I dove into using astrology with my client work. And it has been so fun because it's been such a like a shortcut to be able to see some of the strengths and weaknesses and patterns in someone's life. You can see that play out in a birth chart. And then, as I was just saying, in the last 6 months, I've really been initiated into leading with astrology versus my transformational work. So here we are today. And so you saw me a few weeks ago talking on my stories about working with a team and reading for her team. So so uh, the leadership person could have a better understanding of with the
Yeah.
kind of different types of energies and personalities and strengths and weaknesses of her team to then be a better leader.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's been so fun. It's been such a fun evolution. And, you know, we can dive in and talk about how the astrology of mine even impacts these decisions. But I'm really excited to be here and be having this conversation with you. Astrology is much more than a passion of mine. It's like a way of being now. And I attempted to turn it off for a while where I was like, no, it's not who everyone saw me as an astrologer but myself. And I'm like, no, it's not me. I don't want to lead with that. That's just it's not. And then whew, I just leaned in because it was an ushering. I told my husband, I was like, I don't have control over this anymore. I know you're on board with me. He's very supportive. I was like, but I just need you to know I'm not driving this anymore. It's just happening. I can't control it. It's just
Yeah.
it's who I am now. And instead of resisting the current, I'm going with it because that feels like a lot more fun. And it has been.
Yeah, and I think that that is such an inspirational, alignment, if you will, because I know when I find myself forcing things, it
Yeah.
is so much different in terms of how it feels energetically, how other people receive me energetically.
Yeah.
But when I allow myself to just be in alignment, even if it doesn't make sense to me, even
Yeah.
if it was not part of the plan, and when I just like let go and allow things to unfold in that way, there is a potency that happens, right? Like when
Yeah.
it's like you plus your soul
Yeah.
purpose plus alignment
But
equals like fucking
let's go.
epicness.
Yep.
And I think that it's just, I've seen that time and time again, even with, social media, for example, somebody can be sharing content like, all day, every day. And
Mhm.
then the second they step into more like a deep alignment
Yeah.
or their soul
Yeah.
purpose, the second they really allow themselves to just, say like fuck it, I'm just going to
Yep.
go for it,
Yeah.
that's when
You
people
can
will
feel it.
start seeing their content. That's when
Yep.
people will start responding to their content, be
Yep.
interested in their content.
Yep.
I told you, like, when I have been, seeing your stories lately about you involving yourself with astrology and using astrology and even the course that you put out, it feels like taking a bite of a big juicy peach. Like it's just like, oh, I'm
Oh, I
like, this
love
is
that.
so good.
Mm.
Because I can feel like that energy
Yeah.
behind it. And it's
Yeah.
so amazing to me because, we have known each other for quite a long time now.
Yeah.
And when I first met you, to be completely honest, this is the last thing I would have said that, oh, yeah, Elliot is in a couple years right now. She's going to be doing astrology readings for people. No,
Can you imagine?
Absolutely not. And that was also like when I met you, you were like, and I have charts and I have graphs and I have all of this stuff. And like, and
Yeah.
you're like, this is how it's going to go. And this is my
Yeah.
12-year plan.
Yeah.
And like, now you're just like, I'm just going with it, babe. Like, and
Literally.
I'm like, what has happened to this bitch?
Literally live and the beautiful like alignment. And I've been on the wave of life. And we were talking before recording how it's just been so fun and interesting to notice the entrepreneurship journey. And
Mm-hmm.
again, yeah, if anybody would have told me, if somebody would have told me, I mean, I had this conversation with clients and like mastermind sisters last year where they were like, Elliot, like, why are you like, you're not leading with astrology? And I was like, I don't want to. And they're like, yeah, but
I
you,
don't
you,
want to.
I was literally like, I don't want to. And they were literally, because I love relationships, right? Like one of the whole reasons I got
Mm-hmm.
into therapy is because I fucking love relationships and like do as I say, not as I do from my 20s. Now I love relationships and I love the conscious relationship my husband and I have built. And it's really powerful for us and it's powerful for other people to witness too. And so when I was like having this conversation last year with some mastermind sisters and our mentor at the time, they were just like, why can't you do like relationship coaching and mix some astrology in there? I was like, no, there's nothing about that like lights me up anymore. That's not the path. And I couldn't see the path that I'm on now. I couldn't see that then, but I know that those conversations got me to here because it piece by piece, it widened my perspective of what was possible. And honestly, truthfully, all of last year was like an initiation for me
Mm.
on many levels, but definitely planning an international wedding for a whole week, that was a full-time job. And so I weaved in and out of business while I was planning and preparing for that, which I'm so excited about. And so this was my year where I'm like, fuck, I'm leading with this. I started the course that you were just mentioning, the Astrology for Relationships Mercury is Key course. It's a podcast course. I started that back in November and I thought I was going to finish it in 2 weeks before my wedding. Joke's on me. That's impossible. Just manage expectations, Amber. That's all I have to say. And then so when we got back from our travels, our honeymoon and all that, I finished the course and launched it and it's been such a success, so much fun. I'm creating a second one. And so it's just so like I would have never known in 6 months even what that course would have initiated me into. And it's been so fun just to own it. And that's what I wasn't
Mm.
doing before was I wasn't owning it because I couldn't see it, but now I see it and now it's mine.
And I
Now I
would
own it.
love for you to share a little bit about like when people are hearing like, okay, like a relationship
Hmm.
course delivered via podcast about Mercury and relationships. Like what? Like
WTF, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fill us in a little bit.
100% happily. So, okay. So in a birth chart, there's many different planets and each planet has a representation of something. And the thing that was like coming up for my husband and I a lot last year, which is why this course kind of became a topic, was communication. And in astrology, of course, the planets represent different things. And then so do each of the signs. They all have their own energy, which is really fun and unique and, spices us up as individuals and then definitely spices the relationship up as a union, as two people coming together. And uh my husband and I actually don't have what is traditionally called like complementary communication styles according to astrology. Yet we
Okay.
have a really beautiful relationship. And so I wanted to kind of debunk the idea that like because there's people out there who like use astrology as fear and I bring love and I bring some realness. My Leo gives us some no bullshit, but and my water really allows me to come in and get the depth of it and deliver it with care. Um
Mm.
and like the with the like the highest octave of it as possible. Um so I created a course all about the sign, the planet Mercury, which rules communication. So it's the way in which we communicate, the way in which we learn how we perceive information, how we perceive other people, how we perceive ourselves. It's all kind of filtered through this planet Mercury, which
Mm.
then, depending on the sign it's in, tells us how we're really flowing with that energy. And so in this
Oh.
podcast course, I broke down, so there's 12 signs in astrology. I broke down each sign individually, which I have never seen this done before. You can like take a master class on stuff and they give you overviews of energy because energy does, each sign has an archetype, but the way in which it's expressed in each planet can really be different. And so I took time to really talk about the highs and the lows of each sign and also like how it might show up in a relationship, what it might sound like and feel like, how your partner might display this energy, and then like definitely opportunities for growth because there's what we would call like shadow sides of each sign. So I give like some
Yeah.
opportunities for you to like support your partner in it, for you to have a better understanding of communication. So my whole intent was to really like bridge the fucking gap where, if you just took my husband and I mean, I knew his astrology from literally the moment I met him. So I knew what we were in for. I was like, here's where we're going to belong. And here's where we're going to have some opportunities for growth. um, but if you just took that separately and looked at that, you'd be thinking that there's tension this entire time. And yes, we have
Mm.
friction. We're also fire signs, so we like a little friction. But it's not the thing that takes us out because we know how to work with it. And what it does, and my intention for this course was to give like just so much grace and compassion and understanding for each other, for yourself. Even if you felt
Mm.
like astrology for me, when I
Yeah.
found out about it, I was like, I'm not different. I'm actually perfectly correct. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. And my needs and my desires are correct according to me. I just didn't ever have anyone validating that. And at a
Yes.
moment when I was so tender during that dark night of the soul, coming out of a breakup, I was like, oh, this made sense. This makes sense for me. It really brought me back home. And that's
Mm.
what I want for people too, is to get that there's nothing fucking wrong with them. Yes, there's high
No.
expressions and low expressions, but we can work with all that. And there's just we get to, what I love is like astrology lets us be more of who we are. And
Mm.
so this is just one of many courses that I'm building out, but this first one of like, okay, it supports you in communicating with your partner, and you can use it. You can listen to it for your team. You can listen to it for your
Yeah.
mom, for your bestie. Like I talk about some specifics in relationships, but relationships are relationships too. And we're always relating. And so you can get it and just listen to your partner. You can listen to your partner, your bestie, your mom, whomever. I'm your boss if you know
Yeah.
their if you know the birthday.
Yeah. And I think that that's honestly like the way of the future, if you will. Like
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
think kind of like bringing in more of this holistic view of a human
Yeah.
being into all
Yeah, I
aspects
know.
of life. And the other really beautiful thing is not only does it bring validation for ourselves, but it also truly gives us permission not to take things personally, right?
Yes, I
Because like
know.
when my partner's coming at me in a certain way or there's a
Yeah, yeah,
miscommunication, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, well,
yeah,
obviously this is going on
yes.
because of something that has
This
absolutely nothing to do
nothing
with
to
me,"
do.
which
Exactly.
again, like going back to, working as a therapist and a coach, this is something that a lot of us, because we are very stuck in that, child ego mind where like
Yep,
everything revolves around us,
yep,
everything is our
yep.
fault. A lot of like millennials have been attuned to feel responsible for the relationships
Mhm,
and the emotions of like literally everybody
mhm.
around
Right,
them.
yeah, yep.
Right. And so like this really gives that permission to be like, oh wow, like so that's your shit. And it's so funny because I didn't even realize this at the time, but my current fiance, when we first got together, his mom like reached out to me on Facebook Messenger and she was like, hi, when were you born? And what time were you born and where were you
Oh
born?
my god!
And like his mom's like so into astrology and she
I
literally sent
love
us
that.
this like compatibility like
Oh,
whole like thing. And she's
how
like,
precious.
I approve. This
Approve.
is
Oh
this is
my
going
god.
forward. You know,
Usually
and
it's reversed. Usually you're asking the mom for birthday information. She's not asking you. That's hilarious. But I love that the consciousness of that. Oh,
yeah, it's so funny because my fiance, like, he doesn't believe in that stuff, like, whatsoever. We could not be more, like, polar opposite.
yeah.
Like, I'm all like, "Oh my gosh, honey, it's a sign," and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, it's
It
a
is.
sign, all right," like and, but that's very grounding for me, like, I really need that balance, but it's really interesting because the other thing that I found in terms of astrology is when we are trying to do identity work, because this is something that comes up a lot with my therapy clients, my coaching clients. I think, just with a lot of people in
Yeah.
general, we're given a lot of narratives growing up about who we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to act, how
Yeah.
we're supposed to exist in relationship to other people. And we try to make ourselves fit into these boxes that oftentimes do not feel good. They don't feel aligned.
No.
They don't feel authentic.
No.
And when you get this information about who you are at your core, with your birth chart, it is that deep validation of like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I've been
Yeah.
forcing myself to be this way that everybody else was telling me I had to be. And
This
it's
isn't
actually
mine.
not fucking true to who I really am. And here's the proof.
Yeah, exactly. Like I experienced it with that deep validation. Like there's nothing fucking wrong with me for wanting something different, but feeling resistance to who I was because of what
Mm.
everyone else expected and told me. Especially like for me personally, relationships have always been my biggest catalyst. I know they are for a lot of people, and just that's been my personal path with it. And I have a lot of Leo, which I did not know. I knew I was a Leo sun, but I didn't know how much Leo until I got my birth chart. I'm like, this is why I had certain, I would used to call them demands in relationships. Now they're just expectations and standards. But I would have certain demands in relationships for like in certain desires and needs that were very different from my family and my friends and my partners too. And I couldn't understand why I always felt like I wasn't getting what I needed. And I'm like, there must be something wrong with me.
Mm.
It wasn't ever like too needy, but it was like, Leos love to be adored. And like, that's our fucking love language. And if you don't know how to adore us or like make us feel like something really special and unique, and if we are not owning that within ourselves, that just leads to insecurity. Like, I'm constantly feeling, we think about love, love deposits, love bank deposits and withdrawals. We've heard that conversation. Um, and like I'm constantly in withdrawal. But like I'm never in overflow because somebody isn't communicating to me the way that meets my needs specifically. And yeah, when I fucking understood that, I was like, yeah. So my husband was my next relationship after this. Um and he's like happy to like tell the story and share this as well. But it's just, I'm like, here's who I am. Here's what I expect. Here's what I want in a relationship. And I
Mhm.
met him across the country too. And I was also like, I don't do long distance. I need too much attention. And he was like, ooh, challenge accepted. He's an Aries. So he was like,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He was like, challenge accepted. He's like, don't tell me I can't do something.
Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
that sounds familiar. Yep,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, so it was interesting. So I came to the relationship with, of course, I had self-awareness, but I even had it from this place of like confirmation instead of just, because
Mm.
sometimes we want things and we're not totally sure, like, is this me or is this just, again, what I'm told I'm supposed to want or whatever? And so I had this validation of like, oh no, like, I'm a fucking queen and I deserve to be treated as such. And like
Yeah.
those are my expectations now. It's not even a demand. It's just, and I gave him an out. I was like, if you can't meet that, that's fine. There's no loss for either of us. Like it's so early, but like here is what I need. And man, have we been on a journey for the last 4.5 years, but it's been amazing.
Yeah, but I think that that's also where when we're able to take radical responsibility of
Yeah,
ourselves
exactly.
and advocate for whatever it is that we need. And I think that that's where it's really helpful to be able to look at astrology because we have so much that shapes who we are.
Mm.
And some of it is not healthy. Some of it is
Okay.
maladaptive. Some
Yeah,
of it
sure.
is, a wound. Some of it is reactionary.
Yeah.
And so being able to look at, okay, like who am I at my core? What actually feels real and true and resonates for me
Yeah.
versus like what is a trauma response, right? Like,
Mhm.
do I feel like I need to be adored all of the time because I actually don't feel really good about myself? Like
Right.
that's not healthy.
Right. Right.
So I think being able to use it as a tool to really
Uh-huh.
practice discernment in terms of
Yep.
that identity development and that development in terms of your relationship with self and relationship to others is
100%.
so powerful.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fascinating too because Leos specifically, and I'm happy to dive into your chart and talk about specifics for you, but what I learned through Leos is like actually we have a really, it's like actually pretty correct for us to have an ego and to have like a healthy sense of ego, like healthy in the sense of like it's not over or under active, but like it's correct for us to think a certain way about ourselves and to have these expectations of self and others. That's just like the energy of Leo. It's very regal. It's very leadership energy. It's very heart centered because it's like it's leaving no one behind. I want to bring everyone with me, just the same sense of like, I learned astrology and I was like, fuck, I want everyone to feel this. Like, I want to read, and I
Mm.
would read people's charts and they wouldn't give a fuck. And they would have like zero response. I can't tell you, I read it like every single one of my coworkers. I worked in a building with like 50 social workers. I read all of their charts and I was like, let me tell you about yourself. And only a handful of people were like deeply interested, but it's just so funny.
Mm.
Like, and that's okay. That's okay. But it shows
Yeah.
like that I was needing this moment of astrology more than some other people. And it shows the different energy flavors of some signs just aren't as interested in this kind of thing or wouldn't have the same reaction. Let me say it that way. They can have interest, but wouldn't have the same reaction to feeling so seen, like
Mm.
say a Leo would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that that's also, like, for me, I'm like, "Ooh, a tool." Like, I love
Mhm,
tools. Like, give me,
mhm.
like, more tools,
Yeah.
like, because I wanna understand
Yeah,
things better, and
especially
then
as a therapist, right? We love our
right? And
toolboxes.
my partner, I have have to, like, go back and, like, look at, like, his full chart, but
Yeah,
he's an Aquarius, and, like, he's very, like, lackadaisical
yeah,
about pretty much everything
yeah.
where, I'm like, "Babe, we could earn passive income and create these, like, 12 side hustles, and then we could do this, and then also, like, we could create an in-ground swimming pool in the backyard that's also a nature preserve," and he's like, okay." Like, he's like, "Do you ever just, like, hang out? Like, are you always thinking about 27,000 things?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
aren't you?" And
yeah.
he's like, "No, I'm just here."
Which is funny because I would argue that Aquariuses are often future oriented. They tend to be like in their minds, in their heads a lot, thinking about whatever like well, honestly, whatever they're like rebelling against, whatever they're feeling like resistance against, they tend to like are very vocal about that and often spend a lot of time there. So I would That's a little surprising, but what I love about your energy, your Mercury is in Pisces, and it's this visionary flavor. It's this flavor of it's mystical as fuck, which is so precious. You know, a lot of people who can have this placement don't feel mystical because Pisces can have this either in or out kind of energy where
Mm,
if it's
okay.
in, it's deeply involved, but because it's a lot of energy to hold and you're very highly attuned and connected, it can feel like a lot to a person who doesn't understand how to use that energy. And so they will escape or avoid or just develop tendencies or habits that kind of keep you from being present with what's occurring or what you're feeling because they're really connected to the collective. They're really like oneness. They really have this
Mhm.
sweet ability to just like feel everything. And we can imagine how uh, overwhelming that can be for someone who doesn't have energetic management.
Mhm.
um, but that Pisces energy is so fucking precious. Like that, she's like such a visionary. So I was speaking about Mercury, right? So Mercury is how we perceive, how we think, how we speak, how we communicate, all of that. How we perceive ourselves and others. And you come at it from this lens of like it's so and I'm gonna say this with so much love, but it's one of my favorite ways to explain it, but like with rose-colored glasses a little bit, where it's just like you see the best in everything and
Oh,
everyone.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 and so I know some people are like, "No," but like that it is sweet. It
No,
is
I that's
it's
like, I don't think I would be able to be a really good therapist if I
yeah,
didn't do that very naturally and very easily,
I yeah.
There's a couple of ex-boyfriends that are very grateful for my ability to
Yeah,
do that?
yeah, 100%. The grace and compassion that comes from a Pisces placement is so, like, beyond. It can, again, sometimes become a bit of a mat for people because if it hasn't developed boundaries, and it's very, like, porous because it feels everything, but, like, the love and light, like, genuinely of a Pisces energy is so powerful. It's really the part of us that gets so connected to, it bridges love. If you bring love and
Mm.
what do you mind if I say something about your chart on here for
Oh, yeah,
people
no,
and
I
just
told you,
like for you?
I'm a
Okay.
open book, open
I
book.
know. I just and like for all your listeners here, this is so fun. So like we have this thing in astrology called the nodes. Like
What is that?
we have a north node and we have a south node. Have you heard of them or had heard anybody
No,
talk
I
about
have
them?
not.
Oh,
This is like deep astrology stuff that I'm like, I know my sun sign and my moon and
yeah.
my
And you're rising. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But this I'm bringing this up because it's really powerful for your life's work. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so our north node is like our I'm gonna I'm gonna regurgitate astrology information and then I'll break it down, I promise. So like our north node is like our point of destiny. And I know it sounds really vague. People are like, what do you mean destiny? But it's like this place in our chart that we're kind of always heading towards. And it doesn't feel very natural for us most of the time. It feels like this thing that is like opposite than what, say, like we have experienced in a past life. And I
Mm.
say past life because if there's a north node, then there's a south node, and they're exactly opposite each other. So we kind of come into our lives with this energy of our south node, and the south node energy is, again, kind of like what we're most familiar with. It's what we gravitate towards. It's our comfort zone, but it's not our
Ah.
place of growth at all.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can see this, like I see this play out in my chart too. Uh, but I'll say focus on you just for the listeners because they know you better. But there's this like part of our like soul growth, soul purpose comes from navigating like the begin of our north node.
Mm.
And it becomes this like kind of like North Star for us where we can just keep in mind that if we're following this, we're on track. And it's going to play out for everyone differently. Um, but if we can just be mindful of the energy of letting, so I'll get more specific. So for you, your North Node is also in Pisces. And it is
Interesting.
that's and it's also right next to your Mercury. It's just a few degrees apart. And so when it's this close, I'm like, well, fuck, your North Node is absolutely related to your message, and the messages you get and the messages that you deliver to people. And I would
Mm,
be like,
okay. That makes a lot of sense for me. It really does.
yeah, does it? Okay, because if you didn't have a podcast, I'd be like, get a
You
fucking
should have
podcast. Gonna tell the people,
check.
tell the people what they need. But this energy of like, it's so Pisces again. It's mystical. It's all one. It's love. It's compassion. It's forgiveness, and you have this ability, especially with Mercury there, to just translate for the collective, like what we're experiencing or what's happening. And you do it through a way that is very meaningful and through partnership because it's in your seventh house of partnership. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah. So I would say in your romantic partnerships, but this is also the work of like business partnerships too. And like your clients, where you have this ability to like be of like the highest essence for people and to translate that for them, like one higher self to the next higher self is kind of like what that energy reads. And you have that ability to really see people that way and to translate it for them. And so, um, you're already obviously on this path getting there. And I would even say, wow, how, like, what's another way that you could lead into that energy too, where it's heading you in this, and you're lucky. And I say that like, I don't have anything that supports my north node, so to speak. It's not touching anything. No, it's touching some other things, but not as potent as you, where you have like this edge to you where like it's really defined by the way in which you're sharing this message and you're perceiving the information that's coming in because Pisces isn't attached to the 3D. It's out here. It's
Oh,
in the
yeah.
5D. Yeah,
We out here.
yeah,
Trust
we
me,
out
we
here.
out
Yeah,
here.
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's this translation of that message for us and to really share that with us. And there's a few different things in your chart that really like explain that even further. Like um, I don't want to overwhelm you or your audience. So I get really excited about this stuff. So just slow me down if you want to, but I'm like, we can go, we can roll with this. And for anyone listening, like, if you don't feel like you've met your north node yet, that's
Mm,
fine. Most people don't know what the north node is, but also it's this, if you can understand where your south node is and understand that that's your comfort zone. And when you start to see this in clients, it's really fascinating because I'll use myself here quickly as an example. My north node's in Aries. So it's very much like
okay.
fiery. It's a leadership energy. It's like we go first, we go all in. Like I'm leading with passion. I'm leading, it's like it's me first.
Yeah.
Um, but my South Node's in Libra, which is like, let me stay really cozy in
Um,
partnership. Let me do this with other people. Like, I don't want to start something on my own. I'd rather like do it with people or like finding ourselves like not being front and center, but instead being
mhm.
side by side, because that's Libra energy. And there's nothing wrong with Libra energy at all. That's a beautiful fucking energy. That's where your placement is in the house of Libra. We're getting layered here in astrology, but each house is ruled by a sign. So you've got that flavor. That's why I'm like partnership work, whether that's with a
Yeah.
romantic
I
partner
am I
or
am a responder, like, in business, like, I am
yeah.
a responder. I hate being a solopreneur, like, hate
Mhm.
it. When
Mhm.
I am going at it on my own,
Yeah.
I flounder, I really do, like, I it's
Yeah.
so hard for me to feel like I
Yeah.
have energy,
Yeah.
motivation,
Yeah.
direction, but when I'm working with someone, when I'm in
Mhm.
partnership with somebody, when I'm responding to someone, oh my gosh, I have all of
Mhm.
the energy in the
Mhm.
world. And it's so interesting that this comes up because this was something that I had been beating myself up
Mhm.
about a
Yeah, I'm like,
lot.
it's so fucking correct.
Right? Because I'm like, I'm like, "Oh, if you're a leader, you should be able to, like, lead, blah, blah, blah." But I
Mhm.
have this, like, deep desire
Yeah.
to support and this
Yeah.
deep desire
Yeah.
to
You would.
respond and this deep desire to work in relationship to
Yeah.
even just one other person.
Yeah, yeah, and this is great, this
So
podcast
that's a
form
lot
of
of
having people
validation.
on here to get your message out, to be in partnership with people, yeah. I mean, this is just one avenue for you, but, like, yes, that makes so much fucking sense and would be so like, if we were working together and I hadn't share what I just said, and then you said, "Yeah, I just feel like I shouldn't be working," I shouldn't, especially as an Aries, because Aries they are the go first, so you could have
Right.
this
Yep.
stereotypical sun sign of you of being like, I shouldn't need other people," and then I'd be like, "Okay, homegirl."
Actually,
Let's
you
talk.
are not all wrong, you are
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. But that's so like, that's what I love about astrology is even if it's like, if it's a new awareness or a different way of understanding ourselves, like astrology is so layered and you guys have heard me spew different little pieces of astrology. It is actually pretty complex. It's like doing math in my head all day long. It was a muscle I had to build, but now I love it. and now we've like, we're lifting much more at the gym now with that muscle. But it's like, there's this, opportunity to really just like see yourself like just
Yeah.
a little bit differently. And even if you've had your chart read, even if you've heard me say something, to just hear something a little bit differently, where it gives you this almost like crack in the window now where you can like, there's a little bit more air coming in, a little bit more room to breathe, where you can really just deeply get yourself or get other people. Like I have a deep passion for like the what astrology can give us when it comes to like perceiving perceiving other
Yeah.
people. Like I can't tell you how it's changed the relationships in my family. I'm like, I get this now. Before, because no one's perfect. Like in family's the hardest thing for us, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like, I'm like, oh, the friction that I could experience, I'm like, there still might be some, sure, but I have such a better it's not personal. Family feel personal,
No.
right? And now I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is just these energies playing out, and like, who am I to judge them? Like, who am I to say that that's wrong? It's different than me, but I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And now I know what your needs are, so I can actually meet your needs better based on knowing what they are from your
Right.
astrology.
And it
Um,
helps you to be responsive instead of
yeah,
reactive, right? Because you're
100%.
really thinking about, like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense because of this, and I'm standing here, you're over here.
Yeah.
What can we do to kind of compromise and come into the middle where, like, you are still feeling seen, heard, and respected, and I'm
Mhm.
still feeling seen, heard, and
100%.
respected." And it
Mhm.
really allows that collaboration piece
Mhm.
more than, like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
Susie's just being a fucking
you
asshole
versus
again,
me,
like,
yeah.
Jesus." Like,
Right.
yeah,
I
right.
know. I mean, well, I can still think that way sometimes. I'm like, "What the fuck?" But I'm like, I just know that's their blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna call my family out on our podcast, but I'm like, "Oh, that's just," I know that in my mind, where I almost chuckle with it, and when I use
Yeah.
humor with anything, like classic great shadow work tools, just laugh at anything that feels uncomfy or anything that you notice, and that humor really diffuses that, and then it tells us that it's safer and safer to be with it. And it's like this opportunity to just be like, "Fuck that, I get that." That's maybe not the high side of that sign, but I get that sign. I get how that's
Mm,
playing
mhm.
out, and it's not personal. And and it gives me
Wow.
a lot more grace and compassion, a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really powerful. And then I think talking a little bit about just using astrology for like strengths and,
Mm.
we're going to say strengths and challenges,
With it.
because I don't really believe in like strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses. I
Yeah.
think, there's just like things
High,
that
high,
come
low
very
tonight. Yeah.
easily,
Yeah.
yeah, to
Yeah.
us. And
Yeah.
then there's things that we have to like work a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
harder
Yeah.
on. So what are some of the things that either you've seen in your chart or that you saw like reading my chart or things that you've been able to help some people with in terms of amplifying, those zones of genius, if you will, and then also finding creative ways to
Yeah.
address the challenges?
Yeah. Well, I'll just caveat and say like astrology is so unique to each person. And I would definitely recommend a chart reading or go to astro.com and like, it's not astro.com, Astro Cafe, I think is the one, was
Yeah,
the
yep, that
original.
is
Do you know what I'm
yeah,
talking
that's the
about?
one that
Yeah. It
everybody
was like,
is, yeah.
yeah. It was the one that I first listened to. I was like, wait, these people know me. It's a computer. It was like AI before AI.
Yep, yep. Yeah.
So everybody's different and unique. So everybody's challenges are gonna feel and express themselves differently. Because if you think about it just briefly, like we have 12 signs, right? And then we also have 10 planets and and we have 12 houses. And so we have many different components that could be talking to each other very
Mm,
differently. And if you've ever seen an astrology chart,
wow.
it literally is like this line and this line and this line and different colors and this and this. And it can be a really overwhelming to understand.
Yeah, yep. That's like I have like I can't even tell you how many times I've like pulled mine up on Astro Cafe to
Yeah.
like because people are like, "Oh, what's your whatever?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "I
Yeah.
don't know. I have to go look it up
I know, I
again."
have to go
And
look.
then I'm like, "I'll come back to you later."
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, it was a muscle I had to build, and you might feel that way too, and I'll just caveat this, feel free to steer me back. But water signs, because they tend to flow, you know what? I'm gonna say I'm almost wondering if I should go over elements, and that might be really helpful for understanding strengths and challenges,
Mm,
um,
mhm.
for people because there's only 4 elements, and they're kind of pocketed in, but with your Mercury in Pisces, it's a water sign. And she's mutable too, which is it was modality. So she like moves and changes and like she's very like fluid. All water signs are fluid. Water is fluid, right? But yours especially has this like ability to change often. So it can often feel like a little you're here, now you're here and here and here. And there's nothing fucking wrong with that. That would be super correct for you. It would even be correct for you to have many different partnerships, whether that's romantic, over time or, like business, different types of business relationships and
Mhm.
partnerships because of that and how you're relating to people. There's many evolutions of you. And that's all very correct. But for water signs, what I was saying is we don't generally learn like the standard, like textbook educational system learning. It's much more like for water, they like to, because they emote and they feel emotions, they speak with emotions. It's a lot of like, it's water. And
Mhm.
so there's just this lots of expression of feelings happening with water signs. And um, that also means, especially with my Mercury's in Cancer and yours, which is a water sign, and yours is in Pisces. So I'm speaking for us. And what I found is that there's this, we're not necessarily learning like through looking at a chart and then being like, what's this mean? I learn, and this is how I studied astrology, and it took me many years to build this muscle because it wasn't something I could just read and then go regurgitate. I really needed to get it in my body, and it took a lot longer for it to digest, and
Mm.
integrate because I needed it to really, in order for it to be in integrity with me, I needed to really get it, like, get it deeply, but I couldn't do that through just, like, forever reading. I needed to see people, I needed to know a person, and I needed to know a chart, and then through knowing that person and seeing a chart, I could then, translate the energy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes so much sense.
Yeah, so I could like, when I was saying I was reading all my coworkers, I'm like, well, now I know who they are and how they express themselves or how they show up or how they, how they work, all of that. And then I now know their chart. And so now I can place, I'm like, oh, now I know what a Gemini rising sounds like. Now I know what a Scorpio sun sounds like. Now I know what Venus and Aquarius looks like, in their relationship. Like I just started associating and
Yeah.
that's how I learned, and still learn. But so for you, when you were saying like you pull up your chart and you're like a little overwhelmed by it, that would probably make a little sense because you do better with people or through the assimilation of people and information.
Mhm.
And so like it's really like this, it's almost like intangible. Like it's just a knowing. And once it's a knowing, it's a fucking knowing. But until then, it feels like you're kind of wading the waters of that information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And I think it also, again, like it goes back to really having the validation and the tool to provide that validation so that we can stand up to all of the narratives and the supposed
Yeah.
tos and the
Yeah.
things that we
Like that.
were given by culture, society, family of origin, like all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I feel like when, I work with, entrepreneurs, CEOs, coaches, other
Mhm.
therapists specifically, there are a lot of narratives about
Yeah.
how we're supposed to show up in the
Supposed to be.
world,
Uh,
right? And being able to be like, no, actually, like, this is me. This is correct for me, to
mhm,
me, and
mhm.
what is actually in alignment with how I exist in the world.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
can show myself so much love and compassion and acceptance because I
yeah,
have this validation for how I
yeah.
exist, even if everyone else is telling me it's incorrect,
Mhm,
it's wrong, I'm
mhm,
supposed to be another way. And
mhm.
that is such a potent tool for,
So
again,
fun.
being able to stand in your truth.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I keep saying astrology just makes you more of who you are. Like, it allows you to be all of you because it gives this permission. It's like this permission slip of things that we've rejected or denied about ourselves or judged or shamed, and it's actually really fucking correct for us to show up a certain way. And so back to your original question about strengths and challenges, I kind of tend to use the language of high side and low side of each sign. And there's this,
Mm-hmm.
and in my course and how I like to look at it, and this is the language my husband and I use, like opportunities for growth. Like we see challenges as like opportunities for growth. And so if you look at a
I love that
chart,
reframe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you look at a chart and all the red lines you see in a chart, those are your opportunities for growth. And if you see blue
Mm,
lines or green lines, those are where you feel like there's more ease and more flow and like helpfulness between the energies playing out in your chart. So like I said, everybody's unique and they can all talk differently, very differently than the next person, but you can kind of get a grasp of like looking at a chart. Like if you look at how many, like you look at the amount of red and you look at the amount of blue. And that doesn't mean somebody with a lot of red is gonna have it really hard or it's gonna feel really tough. It just depends on the uniqueness of the energy. But I like to think about red because I have a lot of red. And I like to think about red as like these opportunities for growth. And I'm like, it has given me the fucking grit to keep going.
mm,
It's given me the grit to never settle. It's given me the grit to constantly evolve and transform and happens to be part of my life's work because of that energy too, because I'm always
yeah.
a new version of me through that. um, and so I don't want, like, we don't do fear-based astrology here. Every chart is perfect and it's perfect for you. And some just have different karmic lessons and
Yeah.
opportunities. And like some people are, designed to be front and some center, and some people are designed to be more support in a supportive role, but neither is better or worse. And so if we're talking about the elements specifically, like, so there's four elements: fire, earth, air, and water. Fire, like the tenants, so fires are Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius. And so these energies are like kind of in your face energy. We're bright, we're bold, we're here, we're optimistic. We're like, we're like kind of the natural leaders of the zodiac. There's other, of course, other signs are leader signs too, but we're just, you tend to hear us more
Mm,
because
mhm.
we're just louder about it. Generally, fire signs are just that we burn hotter. Literally, we're just like more, we're more in your face. You're gonna feel our heat more. Um, and this makes really great CEOs and entrepreneurs. And it makes it any great person, but it does make somebody who's going to be more present. You're going to notice them more. And some of the challenges to fire signs is, you burn hot. Like there can be a lot of like heat, especially if you find that in a relationship too, or like there can be a lot of like, you got two people who are burning up and then, but it sizzles out pretty quickly too, fortunately, with fire
Mm.
signs. But you can have people who are some stubbornness and some like fire signs, like competition tends to be like a big thing, or like this internal competition. I'd say Aries the most of like you. I reference. I know you. I reference my husband who said when I first met him, like, like if I had it my way, I'd pursue this. He like didn't want to accept that like I don't do long distance. And he literally in his mind was like challenge accepted. Um, and so that's like typical Aries energies you would see play out. And so it can kind of like that competition, that kind of arrogance, some of that, just noticing where you might be tending towards the self versus others,
Mm.
instead of like where we're kind of more self involved. What I will say personally, one of the things in business that I fucking loved about myself and gave me permission is like I do everything through the lens of me. And like, yes, we all do this, but like it's really correct for me to do this. All of my Leo, I have Leo sun, Leo rising, Leo Venus, Leo Mars in my first house of,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, in my first house of Aries. which is also a fire sign. So you can hear how I'm layering it. Not important for those listening. If you're not tracking, it's so fine. But it just gives me this double fire energy. But I'm looking at my Leo through the lens of Aries, which is me. And so Leo already has this um flair to like, I want things my way or this certain expectation. And we do it in such a heart centered way. Like it does, like we're like bleeding hearts. Um, but it's very correct for me to do everything for me first. And then through my understanding of it and my integration of it, then I deeply serve. And so sometimes
Mm.
that takes a little bit longer for my message to get out. But right? Because I've got to deeply live it first before it translates for of usefulness for other people. But that was something that was really helpful because especially, in our helping profession, where like
Yeah.
it's like selflessness of service and just be of service. And I was like, a bleeding heart being of service and like selling my soul. I'm like, but like, I was like, I can't do what I want. That wouldn't be that like I'm wrong for that. I'm helping people. So I should just keep helping people. Right. That's what we're taught, especially in our field.
Yeah.
Um,
I remember when we were in our group coaching program and like, we were all like kind of like working on like our pricing for our like
yeah.
coaching and all that kind of stuff. And you just like busted out where like I can't even remember the number, but like, let's just hypothetically say like we were all like, okay, like $100 a session. You're like 300,
Yeah.
$300, and I was like,
That sounds
I
right.
was
That
I'm
tracks.
sorry,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I'm trying to get good with 100 and you're like,
Yeah.
300.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds fair. Right? Like it's up on the website and like people are
Yeah.
literally like handing you the money that
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
I deserve.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so like I can totally see that.
Yeah, that's the fire for sure. And it does have this sense of certainty to it where it just believes in what it's doing. And that's a can be a plus for the people who overthink it. We have people who overthink things, right? Maybe some of our earth signs, maybe some of our water, our air can definitely overthink. That's what those signs can do, but it's not necessarily from a place of insecurity. Whereas like fire is just like, fuck it, let's go. Yeah. But it was so helpful for me to understand that this is part, and I'm a sixth line in human design. We're going to switch tools on you really quickly. And also learning that and understanding that like deeply like opportunities for trial and error. And then through that synthesizing of that information is where I teach from. And so it's even like
Mm.
this deep understanding of like, it's fine if it's not for other people right now. And maybe that makes my progress slower. But the moment I fucking get it, you better believe I'm blowing your world wide open. And like, that's even like what
Mm.
we've been seeing for me and now leading with astrology is like the resonance for so many people around this, that it's just, again, a year ago, Elle would not have been able to sit here and speak to you like this because I was deep in my own integration of my wisdom around it. And that's part of my integrity barometer too. But now we're fucking here and, and now I want everyone to have access to this. So we're sharing. Um, okay. So that's fire signs. We'll do earth because you have lots of earth in your chart. So Earth is Virgo, it's Taurus, and it's Capricorn. And so our earth
Mm.
signs are like the people who are like they like tangible. They like to feel and touch and experience something like maybe more than other signs. So for you, I mean, you have your moon in Virgo, you're a Virgo rising. So our moon
Oh, it's
represents,
like I never knew.
yeah, girl, you have so much earth. Um, you actually have you only have your sun in fire. So if fire signs don't always resonate with you, this would make, if like not all of that, I definitely see you as fire, but I also see this earth really supporting your fire. So I can see where this comes from too. Yeah, you have a ton of earth, which just makes you really grounded. It's this opportunity. Okay, I was saying, sorry. Your moon is in Virgo and our moon is what our innermost self. It's the part of us that like it's how we feel most nourished. It's how others can nourish
Mm.
us. It's kind of our subconscious world. It's our innermost world. So we can really get a peek into somebody's heart through their knowing their moon sign. For
Oh, wow.
yeah, my next course is being built around that because you can imagine how powerful
Ah,
that
love
is.
that.
Yeah, you can imagine how powerful that is for relationships to be like, oh, that's how you need to feel most loved and nourished. Like, oh, this is how we create emotional safety because that's what the moon rules is emotional safety. And like, oh, I can shortcut this for you. Like, great, let me do that. And so for you, yours is in a really potent position, actually. It's at 0 degrees, which is a really strong degree. So it's a kind of a newer energy for you. Like if we're talking about degrees start at 0 and they go to 29. But with Virgo there, like, I was saying, we're taught to be of service, but for you, it's like a value. For you, it's like there's this Virgo rules Virgo rules a few things, but she's she's like a goddess of service. She loves to be in service, supporting other people, helping other people. She really is like this messenger of health. Health becomes a really big focus for people with Virgo placements. She rules. Yeah, I know a little bit about your story, so I'm like, this doesn't surprise me. Not that I would ever predict this
Mm-hmm.
for someone ever. I would never give that kind of information. But it does maybe help us understand that digestion, because Virgo rules that digestion. That digestion would be probably a big thing for you, and you can kind of know when you're in the shadow side of Virgo when you're having lots of digestive issues because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of anxiety and Virgo can really have its energy play out there. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. And your moon there. So that would tell me that I mean, like, I don't know your love language. Is it like, do you love acts of service? Is there something that like,
Yes,
yeah,
I
yeah. I'm like, um, I mean, it's pretty obvious from some other places, but I'm like, I'm sure you like to be like
Yeah, it is.
supported.
Yep, it
Yeah.
is acts of like literally acts of service,
He's a
and then like
service. Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
I
like
can,
you take my car and put gas in it,
yes.
like I'm
Yeah.
over the freaking moon.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I would know that from your Virgo moon, but you also have, I mean, you have Taurus placements, you have Capricorn placements, and these placements are personal planets for you. So like I'm saying, you have a ton of Earth. So I would have guessed that, but I love like your Virgo wants to like get it right. And that can be sometimes a downfall when she's like overthinking it. What I do love for you though is like opposite Virgo is your Pisces. And so you have some complementary energy here where Pisces is playing in the field of possibility and the field of, she's hanging out in the quantum. And Virgo's down here making shit happen. Like Virgo's down here like materializing the vision from above. And it's good. Not everyone has that balance. So you actually have that balance where because your rising sign is in Virgo too, you lead with service and you have a mission that's very clear for how you want to support people. And it's meaningful for you to be impactful and to be like a nurturer for yourself, but definitely for other people. Like Virgo just loves to take care. So does Cancer, but Virgo does it in a very like an acts of service, like a material
Mhm.
way versus Cancer does it in like a more of a feelings way, a little or taking care of the home kind of energy. So yeah, so earth signs in general can get this energy of like they really like tangible like acts of service. If we think about, I like to think about
Mm.
I'm always asking people, I'm guessing, and then I'm asking people their love languages because I'm developing hypotheses a lot of times that's based on like people's charts. I'm like,
I can see the wheels turning, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, how like I have my background and all the things, and then I'm pulling that into information. I'm like, and what things am I seeing that are overlapping where I can just keep shortcutting the information? And that's what I love is like astrology is a tool to shortcut some of this
Yeah.
information. Yeah. And earth signs, they just really, I was talking about digestion and how, well, specifically Virgo, but just like digesting information. And they really like, they can be a little bit slower sometimes about where they're going, not like a fire who sprints, but they're methodical and they're practical and they're like these are the placements that really enjoy seeing the whole like seeing the step by step, like what is the plan? And they like having their calendars like open and booked and like they like the organization of how can I see what's coming? It's like it's like it's not necessarily long-term visioning, but it's more of this energy of just like I want to know the plan. I want to know how I can best be
Mm.
supported by the structure. That's what the word I'm looking for, the structure. And so with
Yeah.
your moon there and your rising sign, which our rising sign is kind of the handshake we have with the world, is how people see us first. You would present more as a Virgo than to people. And then they get to know you and they see some of this fire, and then they're like, maybe on social media, people get the energy of like, she's really grounded, she's really certain, she's really practical, she's really here on a mission. And then they get behind the scenes and you're like, let's fucking go. And like,
Yeah.
and then your core personality, which is our sun sign, kind of comes out a little bit, right? It's fun that we have like these different layers to us. Yeah. So with your moon in Virgo, your rising sign is Virgo, your Mars is in Capricorn, and your Venus is in Taurus. And you've got other placements there too, but I'm just highlighting those for the sake of people listening. But this just tells me that like you're building something tangible. Like you're okay with one foot in front of the other, moving forward, because you know that at the end of your steps, at the end of your life, you will have built something successful and something long lasting. And it's probably really important to you to have and to be creating some sort of legacy that like lives on through you, from you, beyond you, because this earth energy really does like to build. And with your Mars and Capricorn, it's just like it's motivated by ambition. It's motivated by success, and it's happy to like be working. It like doesn't mind working.
Mhm.
Earth signs don't mind
Nope.
working. Yeah,
Nope.
yeah. Where some people might be judged for working more or like filling their schedule or whatever, but like Earth signs, like I mean, Taurus is like luxury, so they like a little bit of grace with that. But in general, Earth signs really do want to be in motion, like building
Oh, yeah.
something
I'll work
tangible.
hard, but let me make my own schedule, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Here's my caveat. Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. And with your Venus and Taurus there, like she wants her self-care. She wants like, give me all the luxuries of taking care of myself. Let me like be able to book in my massages or like my facials or whatever the things are for you that like really fill your cup.
This is freaking me out, Elliot, because I literally like just the other day did a like, okay, if I was just to like scrap everything and
Yeah,
like write out like what is my perfect, most ideal week look
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it is literally everything that you're saying. Like I would have off on Fridays
Yep,
completely. Fridays are like self-care day. We're booking
yep,
massages. We're
yep.
going to cryotherapy, infrared sauna,
Yes,
like whatever.
yes.
You were getting a smoothie for lunch. Like that, like
Mhm,
every single week. And
mhm.
then like also being able to work like really hard, but in a way that feels
Yeah,
good for me. And I can
nourishing.
have
Yeah,
control
yeah,
over my own
yes,
schedule and sleep in if I want to, like all that
yes,
kind of. So I'm
yes.
like, I'm sitting here and I'm freaked out. Like,
It's so correct for you though. Like it's not even doesn't even have to be, this is what I love about it. Is like it doesn't have to be what would my ideal day look like. It just is. Like this is the energy that is where I feel most supported. And I will say I was like, Elle, don't forget to say this when I first saw this. But so this is huge for you. You are in a really fertile time in your life, and I'll say in your life, and whether that chooses to be personal life or career life, but you're in your Jupiter return. And I'll explain what this means for the listeners. And this is
yeah, because I
so
was like,
fun.
I know about Saturn return. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
Jupiter
yeah, yeah.
return. Okay.
This is so juicy. Okay, so Jupiter's in a sign for a year. So it takes 12 years to come back around to the sign it was in that we were born in. So like it's like a
Oh,
party
wow.
when it's
Okay.
there every 12 years. So we've only experienced this a couple times, and we're both 30, you just turned 35, you said, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll be 36 in a couple months. So like we've only experienced it a couple of times. I literally 2 days ago just finished my Jupiter return. And so
Oh,
I'm going to
so
caveat this for your
cool.
audience so they can understand, and then I'll explain it for you. So you know how you guys heard me say how I've been like in transition and figuring out. And then in the last 6 months, it's like bust wide open about like where I'm going. That's what my Jupiter return did to me. There was some influences from the eclipses 100%, but my Jupiter return, because Jupiter is the planet of like plenty. It's a planet of abundance. It's the planet of like whatever it touches grows. It loves to shower like opulence and more and more and more, whatever it touches. And this can be in excess, of course. But it can be such a sweet time in our lives when it hits some things for us in our chart where we're like, now's my time to shine. Like, here we go. And
Mm.
so for me, and this is correct for you too. So Taurus rules your ninth house, and ninth house has this flavor of long-term planning and visioning. It has this flavor of like travel, and it has this flavor of
Mhm.
like spirituality and philosophy and religion, or whatever
Mhm.
of those words connect best for you. It has this flavor of um like uh how do I want to say it? Just like teaching, like sharing. It's like getting our message out far and wide. And both of our Jupiters are there. So this would tell us just in general that like there's this like natural like desire or attraction for us to be teaching and sharing and like to be getting our messages out more and more. Well, for me, when Jupiter went back through my ninth house, um, I literally am like, I have so much to say and I don't know where to put it. And hence one of the podcast courses, right? And I'm like, I just need to get it
Yeah.
out. And so it's funny that because Jupiter stays in a sign for a year. When I've hit my Jupiter return, I went to the Dominican for a month to work. I went to 5 countries last year, including Costa Rica, where we got married, and then our honeymoon in the Maldives. But like, we went to 5 countries, and like, Jupiter loves being in the ninth house and it loves travel. So I don't know if you have any travel coming up, but I would like not be surprised
I do.
if you have travel coming up, because this is the year of like, it really just wants to go big with it. But with Taurus, it wants to do it in like what way? Like mine's in Aries. So mine goes hard and fast, Aries energy. But yours is in Taurus, which is a much more like sensual, like pleasure centered sign. It wants to do what feels really good and nourishing to the body. And so your travel may include even just like, like something that like really pleases the senses for you, where mine was like a lot of international travel because it was like go big or go home, which is like Aries energy, where Taurus is like, but how can I feel most cozy? Like, how can I like really take care of myself during this time? So for you, within your Jupiter return, it literally just moved yesterday into Taurus. So you just started. So and you're this is so fun. You've already started to feel this energy because your Jupiter is at 4 degrees. And so um Jupiter just moved over, so it's at 0 degrees. So there's only a few degrees apart before you're going to hit your Jupiter return. So you've been in the energy for a little bit, but it's heating up for you. So there's this just moment for the next year for you where you get to like really revel in like your pleasures. And Taurus loves um you have it really I'm like trying not to confuse you or your audience so much. I love reading charts because I like love highlighting all these things. So okay. So Taurus like is got this sense of like material wealth. That it's ruled by Venus, and
Mm,
Venus rules money and love and
okay.
the
Okay.
senses. And so like with Jupiter there, I would just be like, and you've got your Venus there. So I'm like, there's probably this sense of like, despite what you're doing, you're always probably like creating wealth. And I even say, I don't know why I'm feeling hesitant of using the word wealth, but just creating like tangible money, like almost like where there's always cash in your pocket, where there's always money in your bank account. There's something about stacking. That's the word I want to use. There's like this stacking energy to you that probably makes you feel really most valued and secure and safe when you've got like like a stack of bills, like to make sure that like things are going well for you or that you're taking care of. And if you don't, you probably feel it more than some other signs because of that Taurus energy where it really likes stability and reliability. And so if you
Mm,
don't have the stacks of cash, it's like edging you and urging you to like create the stacks because it wants
yes.
that. Yeah. Get the stacks of cash. It's like go bury gold in the backyard, please. It's like,
Yeah, no, it's so odd, like, because I'm, like, hearing you talk about this, and I'm like, you could be psychic, like, you could but, like, I know you're just reading my chart, but, like, you really
well,
could be psychic.
I told you, like we end up just channeling and sometimes I just forget what even comes through. But it feels like that with astrology. It's funny
Right,
because it's so funny. And I actually really am gonna like accept that validation of you saying that because not everyone translates charts the same way I do. Everybody's different, of course, in their interpretation of it.
right.
Like you can see the same chart and people will interpret it just differently because we have
I
different
honestly feel
languages.
like you've been, like, following me around for the last month, and, like, not just following me around, but, like, have, like, tapped into, like, my brain so that
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
viewing all of
yeah,
my inner
yeah,
thoughts, like,
yeah,
that's how
yeah,
I feel right now.
yeah,
I'm like, "Oh my god, you
yeah.
know everything about me."
It's so funny. I love it. And it's funny because I had an Akashic reading the other week and she told me, she's like, you're going to be bridging your methods and astrology and your intuition into one. And I was like, yeah, I see that. And I was like,
Oh.
my intuition leads these, anyways. But it's funny you said that like psychic. And I'm like, I already like tune in, tapped in, but then like to hear you say that of like, the method's being developed. That's just what I would say. I'm like, I'm hearing validation from my my own team, but like the messages is received. But back to you. Okay, so for the next year, there's this sweet opportunity for you to really be visioning big. like vision big for your, I don't do 5-year plans. There's things in my chart that doesn't really speak to 5-year plans, but for you, there may be. And there might be, like, because again, your earth really wants the practical. It wants to see the future. It wants to know where it's going. It just wants to know that it has its ducks in a row and that there's an end. Like you can see the success at the other end of your ambition. And like that's important for
Mhm.
you. And so
Mhm.
this would be a really fertile time for you to be planting those seeds and starting to watch them grow too. Because even next year, they'll be growing. And so it'll be so fun for you to just be, okay, number one, nourish the fuck out of yourself. It's Taurus season currently while we're recording this. We're about to switch into Gemini season, but with all of your earth energy, especially now with Jupiter returning to Taurus for you, nourish the fuck out of yourself. Take care of your body. She's going to support you through this. And if she's not feeling like she's taken care of, like she's going to, yeah, yeah, she's going
Been
to let
getting
you,
that message hard,
yeah,
Elliot. Been getting
yeah,
that message hard. She
yeah.
tired. She's
She tired.
tired, and
She tired. Yeah.
she's like, "I'm about to stop if you don't get your shit together."
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 and we don't want that, right? Like, we love her. We love what our bodies do for us, and
Mhm.
even this year for me, I'm like, I can feel the expansion coming in my life that I'm like, my number one priority is nervous system and my health,
Mhm.
because without that, I
Mhm.
can't grow. Like, my business can't
Mhm.
grow, I can't grow. And
100%.
so I'm like, okay, this has been I've been deep in like my supplements and my naturopath and like
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I'm like nervous system regulation every single day. I'm like releasing subconscious release. I'm like doing my practices because I know what to anticipate based on astrology. I also have a strong intention for myself, but I'm watching and noticing how my body's responding. And I'm like, I'm priming it. I'm priming it. I'm priming it for the growth. And I know that, you know,
Mhm.
with expansion can come contraction, but I don't want the contraction to take me out of the game. I want the bounce back much faster than I've had it in the past. And so that's what I'm intending. And so for you, I really see that being for you too. I really see it being this really fertile time of you taking care of yourself, prioritizing pleasure and play and just like really like I keep saying nourishment. And through that comes just the byproduct comes ease and comes the opulence and comes the abundance and the opportunity. It's really this really fertile time for the next couple years for you and just
That's so
opportunities.
fair. Because, like, in all of my meditations
Do
lately,
you feel
that
that?
word for word, what you just said is the message that my guides have been
Oh, wow.
giving me,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
literally word for
goosebumps.
word. So, like, to see that that's, like, also in my astrology, it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's
that's
coming.
like,
Oh,
I'm
I
sitting here
beg
and
this
I'm
up.
like,
But like how
but that's
fun, right?
but that's also because, like, we talked a little bit in our pre-recording, like, I've been getting these messages in terms of, like, having faith and trust and surrender
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
knowing that I
Yeah.
can slow down, and by
Yeah.
doing less, I'm actually
Yeah.
gonna
You're
have
doing more.
more,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
it just so, like, I'm like, oh, the Matrix is like, "No, that's wrong," right? That, like,
Mhm.
you need to have more and do more, and
Mhm.
then maybe you'll get more,
Mhm.
and this whole, like, do less, get more thing, like, it's so interesting because I feel
Yeah.
like, again, that's
The
probably, like,
paradox.
my South Node, like, feels comfy cozy with that, but then, like, my North Node's like, "Yeah, you just step into your
Yeah.
message, your
Yep.
purpose, and everything
Literally.
will be fine."
And there's even more importance, and I'll tell you why, because we look at like you're a Virgo rising and our chart, we look at, so we have a chart ruler, everybody has a chart ruler, and you can pull up your chart and see this, but um so Virgo, as a Virgo rising, you're ruled by Mercury. That's a Virgo and Gemini rule Mercury. This is huge for you because your Mercury is in Pisces. So we look to Pisces, we look to your Mercury for being one of the strongest points in your chart because it's
Okay.
rule. It's like a high point for you of like anything touching or surrounded or any aspects, we call them aspects in astrology that your Mercury's making are like really potent parts, and the fact that that's already what the conversation, this wasn't even, I realized this as I was talking, I was like, I need to go back and touch on this. It makes it even more important. I was talking about your North Node and your point of destiny and like where you're headed and how your message is going to be a really big part. Now, like compound that with the fact that it's your fucking chart ruler and it's asking you to be like, girl, like share, please. I almost keep getting the word like translate. It feels like you're translating information. You're transmitting, like there's like a transmission, like there's like it's like this, like getting out of your own way of the overthinking and needing to be in all the details of things and channeling literally
Mhm.
the energy of just like what's coming through. Like, I don't know if you do Akashic readings but like I could so see you just like being such a translator of information for people in such a healing way. And what's really powerful is you've got this, you can't see it because I've got it pulled up on my screen, but this really fun energy of like, so Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and then we look to your 10th house, your career house, and it's in the sign of Gemini, which is also ruled by Mercury. So there's this like synastry that's happening for you of like people see you as somebody who wants to share with them because the 10th house is the house that people like, I don't know, it's like our public facing house. It's the house that like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that people want to, that kind of how people may outwardly perceive us, not in the same way as like our rising sign, but just like, you know, mine's in Taurus. And I think more than I realize, I don't have any earth. So, but like, I think people see me as somebody like a little bougie, a little luxury. I like my cozy
Yeah.
conditions. Yes, yeah, I know. I'm like, that's my Leo. But like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like, and I work at kind of like a slow pace. Like, that's the Taurus in me or my Taurus in my 10th house. And for you, like, this 10th house has this huge persona of like, of messaging, of student, of learner, of like, really being this, it's Gemini, so it's got this duality to it where you can hold multiple perspectives for people. And you can really be a truth teller in that way. And like the fact that you have Gemini at the top of your chart and then, you know, your chart ruler is Mercury because you're Virgo rising, you've got all this energy. I'm telling you, that's just saying message, message, message. Whether it's writing or speaking, I don't care. I tend to see, I tend to actually see a little bit more writing sometimes with this placement.
Mm.
Because I always find that like with Virgos, I just find them as like not bloggers, but like they like long form for some reason, or like I see Virgos writing the books. Like people our age, I feel
Yeah.
like they're the
Yeah.
ones writing
Yep.
the books. And Gemini is more like the voice. This isn't true for everyone, but that's just when I'm noticing things and picking up on things. It's like Gemini tends to be more communicative with the voice, but with Pisces in there, she can be whatever the fuck you want her to be. She can write, she can YouTube, she can podcast, but she just wants to like really let everyone know um, what's possible for them and the message of where
Mm.
they're headed and where they're going. And you really have this ability to tune into people's like higher self. And I really think that
Mhm.
people would would and do benefit from that with you and from you. And there's this, and you do it in this really, really nice, like you make people feel really safe. I'm just like looking at some other pieces in your chart where you can really just create this like natural safety, but then like give them the truth.
Yeah, that is pretty validating. I say that, all my clients are like, you are like really honest, but I really love it. Like
Yeah.
it just,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that there's just like, there's a lot of truth, but there's a lot of compassion. And I think it
yes,
really is
yeah,
because again, that higher self piece, like I'm not telling you anything you don't already know.
exactly, exactly. But I'm seeing it for you. You're holding it for them. You're like holding the vision. You're holding the intention, and it's like it's a calling them forward with this energy. And it does it in such a, like you said, like a compassionate, loving way. It does this in this energy of like, it just like you're okay. I just want to help you see that. I want you to
Mhm.
know that and like really, really get that. Like that earth in you really wants them to like get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, part of like I think, this whole mission here is that I truly don't believe that anyone is a follower. I think we're all
Mhm,
leaders. It's
mhm.
just kind of in
Love
what
that.
way
Okay.
that you are choosing to lead. And that's where
Mm,
like some people lead from the back, some people lead from the middle, some people lead from the front, some people lead from like way down the road.
yeah.
I think that there's so many different types of leadership, but again, like we are all being called to be in alignment with our soul purpose and our soul mission,
Yeah.
and being able to again kind of like discern what is real and true for you so that you can be in
Yeah.
alignment with whatever the fuck you came here to do.
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
is what lights me
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Like I feel like you just summarized your chart with that.
Yay!
But that's
So
what
let's like
my favorite thing is working with people who are already so attuned and intuitive and self-aware that I get to come in and I get to highlight things, but and like maybe say it to them differently than how they've heard, but essentially I'm validating what they already know about themselves. And that's a testament not to me, but to just to the people I work with, where there's always this already deep knowing, whether it's showing and projected outwardly yet, but there's this deep knowing of who they are and what they want already. And so I had to come in and be like the Leo height. If I'm like, this is fucking great. Let's go.
Yeah, that's like I'm like sitting here thinking, like I'm like, can I send my clients to you? And then like
Mhm.
we'll work on like actualizing like all that
Yeah,
stuff, but
yeah,
like go get
yeah.
a freaking chart reading with
Yes.
Elliot and then and then
Right?
come to me and like we'll do the coaching on it. But I
Yeah.
really think that that is such a powerful tool. And I know, we talked about fire, we talked about earth, we talked
Okay.
about water. Yep. And so if you could just, I know
Right on.
obviously don't have a lot of this in my chart, but just, to kind of round out the conversation,
Yeah.
if you could share a little bit about the air
Air.
signs a little bit.
Yes. Thank you for bringing me back to that.
It's
Yeah.
the therapist in me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
got you.
appreciate that. I'm like, I can keep translating the information for as long as you want to listen. Yeah, so air signs are beautiful. They're the NLX of the zodiac. And you said your fiance is an Aquarius, and Aquarius is an air
Hmm.
sign, Gemini is an air sign, and Libra is an air sign. And they all, as every sign does, shows up a little bit differently, even if it's in the same element. But these signs are like the social signs. These signs, especially Gemini and Libra, especially Libra, I feel like they love.
My bestie is a Libra, like through
Yeah.
and through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's so precious. It's so sweet. They're so charming. Libras are just so charming and charismatic. They just like, and that's what they do. You know, Libras and Pisces, I'll say, are like the two lovers of the zodiac. And so they love love. And so they're, have that rose colored glasses on sometimes, to see what they want to see sometimes, and then be one love for all. Um, but they're also like Libras can be very like they really most of the time I see this. I think my brother's the exception, but like aesthetically, they really like aesthetic. He does too. Let me say it this way, but I see it play out in the coaching world a lot with people I know who have curated Instagrams and like photography and things. People with strong Libra energy, they really like aesthetically pleasing things. So
Yep.
yeah, 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 yeah. And it's important for them. It's like their beauty. They're ruled by Venus, which is also Taurus is also ruled by Venus. But it's like beauty and love and arts and money. And like it's very important for them to like they feel best when their environment looks the
Hmm.
way they want it to look. Yeah, yeah. And and that's a little bit more exclusive to Libra, but even just for all air signs, Gemini and Aquarius as well, like these are the people who remember how I said, I'm like, oh, it took me a long time to digest the information and get it. These signs can fucking learn it and spin it around and teach it, and not in a bad way.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not all the way integrated. There is like some energy to that, but they just can learn so fast. And it's so beautiful to like watch this like process happen where they could read a book or not even finish the book maybe, and then, have a master class on it or tell you all about it where I'm like,
Yeah,
there's no
that's
recall for
my
me.
my best friend is one of the scrappiest people I know,
I love that.
but, like, it's so scrappy and so, like, finessed and put
Yeah.
together, like, all at the same time, and I'm like, "How the fuck did you do that?" Like,
Yeah.
seriously,
Right.
I'm over here, like, literally integrating for, like,
Yeah.
12 years,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh,
Forever.
I just,
I
like,
know.
saw this thing on TikTok, and now I'm gonna teach a master class on
Yeah.
it," and I'm like,
I
"The
know.
fuck?"
I know. It's amazing, right? And like, especially for you and I, we both have our Chiron, and this is a whole nother conversation, but I will say just for your peace of mind, our Chiron and Gemini, and our Chiron in our chart is like where we're most wounded. And so this is where it comes in to be really helpful for shortcuts and therapy or in coaching or with our clients to
Mhm.
kind of take a peek at our Chiron to see like where our biggest wound is. And it's something we're always like in process of healing. It's not necessarily the one thing that gets healed one time and we're done. It's always we're mindful of it, but the more we lean into it and heal it, that's kind of our energy in which we then like how we heal the world through that too.
Yeah.
And so healing this part of ourselves and Gemini for us both is like our message and our voice. And it's really important for us to have like be working on sharing our message and our voice because it's been the thing that we've had the most, maybe one of the most insecurities about, or we were most misunderstood about, or we felt um like we didn't always have our thoughts together. And so we didn't always know what to say. And it felt really conflicting to like speak up, or maybe there was something specific from our childhood that happened around that, around communication. And so through that though becomes like one of our biggest like opportunities to heal. And we both have this placement. Yours happens to be in your 10th house of career. So I'm like, girl, I know you're healing this. Look at you. But also like, I'm like, oh, this is part of your life's mission here is like part of this energy, how people see you as like, again, this deep, translator of information, this messenger for the people. Yeah. Yeah. And so air signs can like have this translation of information really quickly.
Mm.
And they can learn it and they can go, whereas some of us have like have taken a little bit, like you said, 12 years integrating. Like I've never felt so seen in my life. And it's like the reminiscing on it. I'm like, oh dear God. But then part of our Chiron is that like fear of that educational component, that communication component for us that um, we have overcome and will continue to overcome. And for the rest of the air signs, it's just they like they're like fucking brilliant. They're so fun to watch in action. They can be really
Yeah.
stimulated. They like lots of stimulation, whether that's people or books or whatever. Yeah. The
I was
down.
just like laughing because like literally my best friend and my fiance,
Yeah.
I joke that they're like the same person
Yeah. Yeah.
because like they'll like my bestie will come over and walk down to like my fiance's office, which has like a laptop, 3 screens, a mini iPad, and a phone, and then like something like seriously, I
Yeah.
like can't even go
Yeah.
near his desk
Yeah. It's
setup.
too
I'm like,
much. Yeah.
and she's like, oh my God, like what do you have good? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like,
And they can see all the monitors at once. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they can. That's so correct for them, right? Imagine if we like judged that and been like, but there's something wrong with me if I can't tolerate that, or that's too much. You shouldn't be doing all that. Like that's actually
mm,
they can manage that more than some other signs,
mm-hmm. Yep.
some other elements because of that. And so it is helpful to like have this understanding. The kind of the shadow side or challenges for air signs can be, yes, not always that information is digested. Sometimes it can come off a little superficial or flaky a little bit, that air sign, because it moves so fast in its mind. It sometimes can just be, these signs can sometimes make plans and they cancel. And so then they have like this, you think of an air sign and it kind of unfortunately has the stereotypical like airhead
Yeah,
to it.
airy
Yeah,
head,
they're
yeah,
just in
mhm,
their heads. They can just be in their heads. And this depends on what other signs are in your chart too, of
yeah,
course, but they can play that out. And then the other thing about them is they don't, because they're so like mind focused and in the mind, they're literally ruled by the mind. Like they're ruled by Mercury, or sorry, Gemini is, but because they're intellectual signs, they're not always in their feelings and they don't have access to their feelings, maybe like some other signs do. And so it can be sometimes
yeah,
frustrating because they don't intellectualize their feelings. So I paid attention to this with clients a lot because if they're intellectualizing their feelings, I'm like, I know what you're doing, sis. Like I could see,
mhm.
I can call all your air out right now. Like I know what you're doing. I know you're talking about it. I know you're thinking about it, but are we like, is there a processing actually
Actually
happening?
feeling our
Yeah.
feelings, yeah,
Yes,
like
exactly.
what is the somatic,
In a
experience
great,
that's actually going on? And they're like, "What?"
yeah, like, I have to feel something, but, like, someone one of my best friends, she, like, I love her, but she's got lots of air, and so, like, I've had to, like, call that out to be like, I hear you talk about it like it's processed, but I don't actually think it's been." And, like, we have that relationship, and I have that relationship with clients. I'm like, "Let's call it out. Let's say what it
Mhm,
is." And so I think it's important, like, again, another way of, like, astrology can really help us get ourselves, and some of our own, like, we don't even see the challenges. We don't, it's because it's especially with those air signs. They're like, no, this is just how it is. It's just, of course, I talked about it. I processed it. I thought about it so much. It's absolutely processed. And like, wait a moment. Let's check in. And especially with Aquarius they will, are probably one of the more detached or most detached air sign from their emotions. And it's not because they don't want to feel, they're just more, I mean, they'll probably tell you they don't want to feel, but like they're more preoccupied with like their mission of whatever that is for them. They're so inventive. Aquarius are like fucking geniuses, I swear, where they're like so creative. All signs are creative, but definitely Aquarius has this energy of like inventor, genius, creation energy because it's always thinking about how to better something for other people. And so it's so
mm,
focused on that like frame of mind that it's not often like present. And
mm.
so, like, for me, my Leo, like, I'm like, be present with me. My water is like, be present with me. But then, like, air signs, I'm like, wait, come back. Are you even here? You're not even in the conversation anymore. It's like, where did you go? Like, validate me. Did you hear me? Say you heard me, please.
Yeah, that's, like, really fun for me, like, being, a
Yeah.
therapist and, like,
Yeah.
my fiance's and
Yeah.
"But how are you feeling?" And he's like,
Can,
"I'm
yeah.
fine." I'm like, "No, but how
No,
are you
but
feeling?" And he's like,
really.
I'm good. And I'm like, no, but like really hard.
But like
And then like
really.
honestly, he'll come back to me like 3 days later and he'll be like, yeah, so the other day, like I think I actually
Oh,
like was upset. And I'm
yeah.
like, I freaking
I
knew
guess I
it.
know. Aw. I love that, but what a gift you get to be for him though, and like holding that space and like, like not getting frustrated by it. Like it would be so easy to do, but just being like, okay, when you're ready. Cause that is the thing is like, they don't always know because they're not as in their body, they're in their minds. And so that can obviously be a downside in relationships or with people you're working with or just yourself. If you feel like I got this, but I don't really got it. That can definitely be an air sign and challenge.
Yeah, and I think that that really is like it, and I'm seeing so much overlap in terms of like astrology and also the nervous system regulation work,
Oh
all
yeah.
of that inner work,
Mhm.
shadow work, all of this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Because like, yes, like I can have this understanding about my, fiance, just kind of like,
Mhm.
it's
Being
not that
aloof.
he's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you how I'm feeling. He like
Yeah.
genuinely doesn't know that he
Right.
has feelings in that moment. Or my best friend, like, there's definitely times where she drops off the face of the
Yeah.
fucking planet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hello,
Yeah.
like, where are you? And I could be like, man, you're a shitty best friend. But like,
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
that's just like
Yeah.
who she is. But
Right.
it's also, I've done enough of my own work that I'm
Mhm.
able to be like, oh, you know what? Like, that is frustrating.
Yeah.
However, I understand that, like, that's how that person exists in the world. I can do the work to not take
Yeah.
that personally. And then how do I attend to my own needs in
Yeah.
the absence of that person being able to be present or emotionally attuned to me? Can I
Yeah.
get that need met
Yeah.
somewhere else or by
Yeah.
someone else in a way that feels good and is respectful to the other relationships that I have? And I
Exactly.
think, again, like these things are tools, but
Mhm.
unless we have done the work to be able
Mhm.
to actually integrate
Mhm.
these tools,
Yeah.
that's where like there is this beautiful piece between like coaching, therapy, shadow work,
Yeah.
like, subconscious work,
Yeah.
and being able to like inform that work with,
Yeah.
astrology, human design, whatever it is that you want to use. But then also knowing that like you have done that emotional regulation
Yeah.
piece, that
Yeah.
when these things come up, you're not like, oh, well, there you go, being a fucking
Yeah.
Aquarius again. Like, I'm so over it. It's like, oh,
It's
yeah, like it
true.
doesn't, if he needs to take 3 days to process something, I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
all right, cool.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, you don't make it mean
no.
anything about you. It was funny last night, my husband, because we often speak in astrology and he's a Cancer moon, and we were like so tired and we just finished like sitting on the couch, laying on the couch, and I was like ready for bed. And he like wanted to cuddle for like 5 more seconds. And I was like, I'm ready for bed. He's like, but my Cancer moon needs it. And I was like, I hear you, I get that, but, like, also, are we thinking about anyone else in the situation that I'm ready for bed? We've already been sitting here and cuddling. Like, but it's so funny how it's, like, that language of, like, you can use it, like but it does become something where we both are aware of, like, our essentially our characters that come out or that play out from ours. Each
Mm,
sign has an archetype and they're different characters, and so, like, who are we getting or who is here, who's present, and what are those needs, and who are they? And I think, like you were saying, like, even shadow work and subconscious work, my favorite. And like, I feel like it's been such a gift for me to have had the past that I've had and the experiences and
mhm,
my education and my training and then all of that. And then arriving here with astrology that I have this lens that's very informed. And so I can see some of these patterns, some of these fears, some of these limitations, so to speak. I can see that play out in the chart. And I can see that for people maybe quicker than like, in therapy or something. Like it
right.
begins like a bit of a shortcut. Not that there's anything wrong with therapy, but it does begin to be like a little bit of a shortcut. And I think it is this opportunity to like, and you said shadow work, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I actually finished water, because one of the challenges for water is to not be reminiscent in their feelings, because water signs like you and I, especially with our Mercury there, our moods are now dictated by our thoughts and our feelings. And like, sure, that can be obvious for everyone, but not everyone is water like us. And so if we're in a mood that's like, or if we're having a certain thought, that the thought impacts our mood more than it would other people because of that water influence. And so water signs, the high side of water is like they're so intuitive, where we have this energy of like empathy and compassion and intensity a little bit,
Mm,
and this
mhm.
like this penetration, this depth, this water, this emotional intuitiveness. And the downside is we can get lost in those waters. we can get
Mhm.
lost in those emotions, without the emotional regulation. We tend to have water placements tend to have a lot more emotional intelligence than other signs because they're
Mhm.
so familiar with that. I absolutely think that my water placements are why I went to therapy, and my Mercury is in Cancer, but it's in the 12th house of Pisces. So it's that like really deep service to like the underprivileged, so to speak. There's that energy. And then my moon is in Scorpio, which is also a deep water sign. And so that gives me the ability to have the depth and like the penetration. I can see through some bullshit, like call it intuitive, whatever. It's just a way of being for me, but it has some intensity to it where I can just
Oh,
navigate the
yeah, I don't
heavy.
work with, like, people who are, like, a lot of Scorpio and
Yeah.
me, like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. It would,
Like,
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
no, my soon-to-be mother-in-law is a lot of Scorpio
Well,
energy.
it's
I love you, Gabby, if you're listening to this, but, like,
it's
you're a
a lot. It
lot,
can be a
queen.
lot. It can be a lot. It's intense, and it's penetrating, and sometimes not always welcome penetration, for sure. And you have that your Taurus there, which is opposite Scorpio, so there would be some conflicting energy. It would feel it would feel a bit like this sometimes, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but part of those essences in my chart have made me really great at what I do and made me really
Yeah.
perceptive. Like I've always been perceptive, call it trauma, whatever, but call it astrology, call it life, whatever. But I'm extremely perceptive, and I think that that's been and will continue to be a gift. But it's fun to see when I started studying my own chart to start to see where those gifts are in my chart. I already had the gifts, but then I got to see them. I'm like, oh, that explains that. And so it's really like a
Mm.
game of discovery. But for water signs, yeah, and that, emotionally intelligent, and we have to remember not to get caught in the waters, and that, facts are not feelings. Um, or what did I say? Facts are not feelings. Feelings are not facts.
Feelings
And
are
yeah,
facts, yes.
yeah, feelings are not facts. And that if we slow down and not everything's personal, then we know that there's more to what's happening around us as long as we're not like caught in the wave of it. So yeah, highs and lows to each element, and definitely specifically to each sign. But it's so fun when you kind of like understand the nuances in it. Then nothing's bad, nothing's wrong. It's just an understanding. And from that understanding, there can be growth. That's what I love
Ugh.
about it.
I love
Yeah.
that. And you know what, Elliot, I'm going to tell you, I'm pretty sure like everyone who listens to this episode is going to like want to get their chart read
Oh,
by
so
you.
fun. I
So
would be
if they
honored.
are interested in learning from you, connecting with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at underscore Elliott Lee. I'm sure you'll drop my name, but it's two L's and two
Yes.
T's. My Instagram. I have my books open for readings, but if there's a time that you don't find that doesn't work, just DM me. I know sometimes, like you, I'm protective of my schedule and my calendar, but I also can
Hmm.
be really flexible. So, if you don't find a time, just DM me. I also have a course out, like we talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
My Astrology for Relationships Mercury is key course. So I'm super proud of that. And it's a really low ticket item. I made it really accessible for people. It's $111 and you get almost over 3 hours worth of content about this stuff specific to you and your partner, split up into the signs. And I'm creating another course for your moon sign. And then there will be another one coming after that for your Venus, which is how you love. Yeah, I'm really excited for
Oh,
that one. That one's
these
coming this
are
summer.
so juicy
I
and
know.
so fun.
It's so fun. I'm like so lit up about it. I would never have guessed that 6 months ago when I had this first invitation, this first urge to create this Marguerite's key course, that I would be creating a library. But like that's how life is. This got me to
Yeah.
that. And we keep arriving. So yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, at underscore Elliott Lee. And then I have those courses available. And I would be honored to hear from your audience. If they would even want to send me a DM to hear how this episode impacted them or what they learned. I love hearing and interacting with people. So if something resonated or you learned something about yourself or something was helpful, please send me a DM.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's where, I will just reiterate that you are such a beautiful teacher, Elliot. Like,
Thank
truly,
you.
I feel like I learn a lot just from following you and
Mm,
observing you.
thank
And
you.
you are a really big expander for me. I don't know if I've ever spoken that to
You
you, but
have
you're a
no,
really big
but
expander to me. because I really watched you have faith. I watched you trust. I watched
Yeah.
you lean in. I watched you have no freaking clue where you were going next, but you
None.
just kind of like went with like what felt true and good for you.
Yeah.
And I see you now and you have this gorgeous relationship with your
Thank you.
husband. You're traveling.
Yeah.
You
Very
are like
proud.
lit up, you glow, and I can just see you so much in your soul purpose
Uh,
doing this work. And so
Thank
it
you.
just feels really inspirational just to know kind of like where you started and just in a few short years. Like we talk
Mhm.
about 2020 like it was
Yeah.
like a
Forever.
millennia
Yeah.
ago, but it
No,
was
it was literally
really
like
not that long
3
ago.
years ago.
So when I think about like how much you've grown and
Right.
expanded in that time, it really is
Yeah.
inspirational for me.
Yeah.
And I love everything that you're sharing over on your page. And I'm definitely going to recommend everybody go give you a
Thank you.
follow. We will drop everything in the show notes for you.
Beautiful.
And again, thank you for your time, your energy, your expertise, and your astrology.
Oh my God, this was such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me, for inviting me. Amber, you're a gift to your audience, to the world. Like, I'm excited to see more of these gifts out in the world. This is so fun. There's such a bigness awaiting you for the next, I mean, coming. It's here. I think we're in arrival time, but we're gonna watch it play
Woo!
out. Yeah, it's
You
potent.
heard it
It's
here
fertile.
first,
Yeah,
everyone. You heard it here first.
I cannot wait to be like the record keeper of this, for this episode, to like have the evidence for you, because I think it'll be so special of like this just knowing, and I think it gives you this momentum too, which I already mentioned I'm a no bullshitter, so I'm not gonna like say something that I don't, and I don't do
Oh
predictions either,
yeah,
but I can
no,
do
I know, and
energy.
also,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, so many things. It's so sweet. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, and I can't wait we'll do this again sometime. We'll come back on and we'll jam again, and it'll be so fun for if there's something your audience wants or needs. But for now, I'm so, so grateful. Thank you.
There you have it. Another episode of the Sacred Leadership Podcast on the books. I hope your time spent here served you and nourished you. Join us every Tuesday for more honest conversations and powerful insights. Remember, exceptional leaders share the wealth. Send this episode to someone who would benefit, leave a review to let others know about the show, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Talk to you soon.